In this video help, we're moving to the product inventory screen, which is shown in the back, but I want to cover what's in this area. There's a product storage screen. The product storage screen is for an organization company like yourself that will take the product and store it in some fashion, either in a warehouse, a garage, or an outside storage area where they have their own products stored. And this product storage thing is there to support that and also to status what the item is and where it's at. And then there's a location report that indicates where all of your products are at. If they're consigned or retailed out or wherever they're at, there'll be a history of all the items that were either sold or located in a consignment location and where they were sold from in the location it was at. Product label text, product label 1 and 2 are barcodes, this one being plain text and these two being barcode, and then the easy barcode application that supports these being made and actually describes how the individual barcodes are made. And if you look over on the screen, you'll see where it says set up. This is actually this screen in a popover that allows you to set up the barcode and produce the barcode that you want to use, and then also to be able to print that label for that particular product that you're producing. The information we're going to start on next is the stuff that is in this screen, and this is the product inventory. So basically what you're doing is you're creating a product or products that repeat based on the item, in this case the inventory ID that is set in by the computer. As you create a new record by add record here, you're creating a new record, and the product that you're producing would either be the end item, the product that is the final thing that is created, or individual items that go into making that product. And you'll see in some places where the products are supported and then the end items are supported. And I suggest when you create a part number for your products, if they're done by you, you do this kind of a description that allows you to understand which item is the end item and which ones are the parts that go into that end item. And that can also be described in the descriptions in the portals as far as the data. For example, if you go down and you do your product storage or anything like that, or your information about this item, to include the picture. Now, obviously, with the picture, you should be able to see what the item actually is, either the end item or the parts that go into it. And these are things that are probably vended by somebody, and you purchase them, and then you create the end item, whatever it is, the shape, the size, and whatever. And we're going to be talking about more about that when we get into the production screen and how you're actually generating the product for the end item. But you need to have the inventory first before you can generate any product, and you need to have the customers that you're selling to also. And also when you finally get those put together with the production and so forth, then you're going to be able to sell those products by consigning them, wholesaling them, or retailing them. And that is the way you actually generate the invoices and produce the products that are being sold. Okay, with that said, let's go ahead and start through the items. The first item we're looking at here does not have a pop-up. You're actually adding the new item. So when you add this, these fields are going to be blank in this information here. These will be blank in the portals, and we'll explain how they're filled and what goes into them. And this is pretty straightforward stuff, actually, because what happens as you create the inventory for the items, the only thing that's not included in that is that there is in this particular application, there is not a lot of vendor information or the actual purchase information in this application. What you're doing is probably buying in bulk different kinds of things, like a set of, let's say like we're going to build a bracelet. You might be buying the shell bracelet with no stones in it and then putting your stones in that you buy, and those would be separate items. And then you might be using them if you do a lot of jewelry. You might have a lot of different stones and a lot of different jewelry you're mixing in, and then the final product shows how you put it all together and came up with the final product. Once you sell an item, let's move over here and show you this. As you sell an item, and they'll see right here where it says tap invoice ID to see the invoice. Once you actually add an invoice where the part number is picked from the invoice, 34-9 blue 3 foot, ship at sea blue 3 foot. Well, this is the items we're supposed to, I just threw in an example item in there, but this is the item you're supposed to be selling. And it actually shows up in the actual invoice as a pop down to show you the item and what it is, or you can paste it in the image field located in the image for the invoice to actually show it in there. So once you create the invoice and you select it in the invoice, this series of data here would be put in there. And you're going to be selecting some of the information like the PID, which is the part ID. If you look here and see that these are the part IDs from the production area, and they show the actual ID at the end of it. And what I did is I used a / and then the actual ID number so that we can differentiate the two as far as what they are. This is the actual part number, and this is the actual production ID. Going back to the first field is the ID that's assigned basically to the inventory ID, and then in this case it's the actual invoice number that you create when you're creating the invoice. Once you select from this screen here on the invoice, it's going to bring that item into this particular screen over here at the same time that you're creating in the invoice. The information that you did for as far as the status on that invoice is going to be reproduced here. The order quantity or discount, the subtotal, the tax, the amount paid, and the ID are actually all generated in the invoice when you create the information. And then the discount amount is the actual physical amount that if you do a discount. Now I'm going to show you again. This says tap the invoice ID to see the invoice. For this particular invoice is the only one sold. As you sold more and more, you're going to end up with more invoice IDs and the additional information that was brought over from that invoice. So let's tap on this, and you'll see that it actually takes you to the invoice where you're actually looking at that particular item and that field, all the information that was created in this screen, plus the image, the item image that we just talked about. If you go back to the inventory by clicking here, it'll return you to that particular input that you were looking at on this screen. Now for your purposes, you're not going to enter this information, nor are you going to enter this information. This is all generated in the invoice area, and it's summarized up at the top for all the items that are sold. So as you sell more and more and you get more value up here in the top, that'll show you the tax, the sales price, and the gross sales with the tax included. And this would be a summary information that's also used in the sales report. Okay, down below you'll see the quantity paid for and the quantity paid tax. And this is a numerical value that shows you the difference between the items that were taxed and not taxed. This was taxed, this one is not. So as you create more of these, it'll show you the individual ones and how they balance, and then they'll be summarized over on this side showing the quantity sum of all the items that were sold for that particular invoice item. Now understanding that the only thing that's going to appear here is the same ID part numbers that are in this screen in the inventory will be in this area in the portal, because this is the item as you create it in the invoice. It will only be shown here because it's related by the part number to this portal. Let's go down to the bottom here, and you can see that there's individual information up here. What we've done is we've taken and copied this information and pasted it into this field. That's simple. The high level and low level are the quantity that are actually calculated as far as what you want to have in inventory. 3 is a high, 1 is a low. Now what's going to happen is if you actually have an invoice and you put a demand on the system and somebody came in and saw something you had in the counter and you don't have any in inventory, you can actually sell it to them and then place a demand on the system, and the quantity for the item be sold up here would say -1. What does that mean? It means you actually have to produce an item in order to have that item satisfied for that client. So if they come in and they like something and you want to build another one identical to it, you would use this part number, go to production and build it exactly the same unless they want it modified. And then you would create either a new part number for something that's different or continue to use the one that's already in here. The quantity on hand in this case shows 0. There was a quantity of 1 used, so there was 1 required and there was 1 used. There is no balance as far as they're concerned. So if you had to build or sell another one, you would have to satisfy that through the production portal, and that's actually the production screen where you're going to be adding that information and producing the item. Once you produce it in the production data, you're going to be looking at this right here. This is the first one that was produced that satisfied this order. It was actually this part number, And this is all done actually in the production screen. So the production data has come over here. You're not actually adding it in this screen. It's coming from the production screen. So there was a quantity of one produced. The date it was required was November 2nd, 215. The date it was completed was the 4th, so a couple of days to produce it. The sum of the build cost was $30. The production ID was number 3. And if you come over here, you can see that this, even though this item sells for $249, your actual cost based on the production, materials, and labor was $139.80, and your net margin was $110.19. So there's a lot of information produced in here. Let's go back to the bottom. As you produce more quantity, the production quantity would be over here as far as the count. The build cost summary is $30 according to this to build exactly one of them. In this case, as far as the end item, and average build cost in this case is $30. So this actually then becomes a little bogus when you look at it here. This was something that didn't match what this says. This should be the cost to produce. So this should have been $30. Now this kind of stuff happens because I'm using example records and just throwing in random data just to test to make sure it works correctly. But what you'll see here is if this actually was $139 to produce in the production, then that's what this would be. It would come over from the production screen. It would show the set price. You would set the price in here. Based on what you want, you would see what your margin is going to be. So the next thing we want to look at, it's pretty straightforward. We want to create a barcode. Now you may not need one, you may not want one, so you don't have to. If you have a different way to market, all we did here is to produce a barcode for the person that actually wanted a custom application that had a barcode. And it's based on the barcode up here. So if I go in here and I look, you'll see that there's a value up here. So you can say set the value. By clicking on set the value, if this were blank, it's going to take the data here, it's going to put it in here, and the value will be produced, and it's actually going to show in the barcode. Now you do have some options in this, and as I said before, if you're looking up here, you're going to see there's a thing called Easy Barcode. This is actually based on the Easy Barcode, and what this turned out to be is it's a series of fields and code that produce the barcode itself. And the barcode itself is generated based on actually having an internet connection where it will take the data that you put in, it'll go out on the internet, and it'll come back and produce this barcode for you. You can set the width of this, the pixel height of it, and where it actually starts at, and you would say 0 pixel, it would bring over here. It needs that kind of information in order to produce the barcode. Then you have the option to pick different kinds of barcodes. Now you can experiment with these and see what satisfies your needs, but right now we're using code 128. It's a nice, small, compact code, and it seems to be one of the better ones to pick. The display value, in this case, you can turn this off, and it will not do what it's supposed to because I've disabled it. When I found out what it did, I didn't like what it did, and it confuses people. So what I did is I just set it to always be checked, okay? And the same thing goes for this item over here. I disabled that as well because Easy Barcode required some information that was not necessary, and I hard-coded it. Text alignment, as far as the text is concerned, you can set it where you want it, left, center, and right. And you can test it to see how you like it and where you want it to be. And then you can set the font size that's included here in the actual barcode. So you have a lot of things to say about how it looks and so forth. And if you look down here, you can actually see the barcode. Let's click off of it. You can see what it actually produces. So you can see when you're working in this screen if you have yet produced a barcode. If you change the way it looks and it stretches all the way across this screen, you're going to want to go in and actually look at the label with the barcode in it to make sure that that barcode fits within the area of the screen. And this is what the barcode would look like. The information is produced from the actual inventory data, and this is what it does. It shows that it's ID 3, and we picked that off from the production screen where we had the ID. It says the name of the item, and it has the price for it. And if you change the $ or whatever, which you can in this particular application, because this one is for the US market or anybody that uses a $, if you're an international user, you're going to want to have that possible text or $ set in the application by the developer. So okay, let's go back. Now, by the way, before I leave here, if you don't see the particular item you're looking for as far as the data in here, you can actually use the production ID, this item right here, to show the barcode you want to print. So what you would do is you enter the find mode, and then go ahead and put in the numeric number of the item you want, and then say perform the find, and that's what it'll do, is it'll bring up the barcode for that item. In this particular case, this one says 1 now because it was not reset to the next barcode that was going to be used here. So if I actually did number 3, then 3 would show up here. The inventory would take you back to the inventory screen, or you can use the drop-down menu to go to anywhere in the application you want to go. Make sure that when you're doing this barcode that you do test it to make sure that the complete barcode works. And I'll give you a little hint here. When you're printing these, you can print them on plain paper. And this is a very good idea to do it on plain paper with any kind of a printer, and then cut out your barcode itself, and then fix it by using a sticky stick, which is sold at most stationery and regular office stores. They're actually even sold at some pharmacies where you can get a little stick that you put on the back, and it glues it to either a label or the item that you want to have it affixed to, like the back of an artwork or something. So then when you're actually in the field and you want to use this as a barcode, you can generate the barcode and then get that on your iPad that shows the ID for it by using that in the application under the inventory system. Okay, let's go back over to the production product screen. Okay, now what we've covered here, and I'm just going to recap so in case you got lost, the production data is here, and you have a portal you can go to look at that information for the portal record. You have the storage data, which we haven't covered. Well, this is the storage data. This is the production data. And then this is the storage data. Now, what is the storage data? When you go to the storage screen and you do a drop down and you place this item somewhere in a location, that information is going to be repeated over here in this screen. So you'll be able to see that information. Okay? And let's see, this is storage and production, to be perfectly clear. Storage, and that's the data for the product storage. It shows the product ID, so it's very significant as far as knowing exactly which one you're looking for. The storage location is, in this case, it says 12, truck shelf 2. And it'll give you the current status on it. If it says sold, it was in the truck, and the status should be updated as far as the storage of it, or the last place it was stored when you saw it. And if it were brought back to the business and handed over the counter to somebody, or it was sold at the actual location of the business, that's what would be in there. The quantity that was sold, the date it was sold, and the date it was removed from the inventory. And again, there's a portal where you can go to the portal and see the actual item, physical item, and notes about that particular item as far as anything you need to put in there about that item and how it was produced, sold, or whatever if you wanted to. You can go back over here, and you can go now to the storage itself. We're in there, the storage status screen. In the storage status screen, what this does is it shows you the different kinds of things that this thing as far as where it's stored. You do not want to change the current ones in there. If you need to add a different one that's not in there, keep these because there are used and they're standard ones, and add your own by saying do action, add a new one, type in there what you want in there, and then go ahead and put it in there. But these are the standard ones you should keep. You can always use the other ones if you create the new ones. Let's go to the next screen, which is the storage location report. And basically what this is going to do is it's going to itemize each individual item that you're selling as far as a finished item by its part number. And it's going to show you in this case, the test client, and this one, these are the two records we have in the system. Let's go ahead and click on these. And you can see that there was an invoice for these, the quantity that was sold and when and where they're located or where they're stored. So it's the up-to-date storage and whether it was sold or not. In this case, you see sold here, and this one says warehouse. It was date it was stored, the quantity that was stored, and the warehouse drawer that it's in. Or in your case, you can add whatever you want as far as the data that's actually where you have it. It might be in a shelf, it might be in a bin, it might be anywhere, but that's for you to create exactly where your locations are at. Or it can be in a vehicle, for example. If it's in a vehicle, then it's going to be where that vehicle is at, like a truck or a van or even maybe a fifth wheeler or wherever it might be. Okay, so that's the information for the report. And again, you can always do your enter, find, and perform find to find the exact record you're looking for. And if you recall from the earlier videos, what you want to do is after you do a find, you want to run the report again so that it puts the headers back in and has the correct information at the top of it. So you're viewing the client for which it was stored at, and this is the primary contact, the business where it was stored or consigned, the part number, and that's the part number for it, and then the primary contact at that location and the storage location if it pertains to that particular item. Then you can also do a scan of the barcode. Now, if you're going to use a barcode and you're going to scan it, if it's the bar number, you need to go in find mode. So you'd go into find mode and then you would click the barcode scan, but you have to have the field highlighted. In other words, if I go into find mode, I need to have it in there and then go ahead and scan. When I say scan the barcode, you have to have your scanning thing set up, and what it's going to do is it's going to generate the information from your iPad for the scan in this field. Okay, let's go back and say perform the find and then cancel it and bring back the data. Okay, let's go down the next item. The next item, we already showed you the storage location report, the product label test. Now this one is if you need it and you don't want to use the barcode, you just want to have the narrative in there and the information. This is the one you would produce if you wanted to have this produce the plain text data in here. And only the data you see here will be printed as you go through this. If you bring up the print faction up here, if you go down and say print the screen, you have all the data in here to set that particular current record from the found set. If you print one page, it'll be one page. Now, what you can do if you had multiple items, which doesn't make any sense because this is using the item ID in here as the item, you would go ahead and just say the current record, and it would go ahead and print that one page for you with that barcode ready for you. Okay, let's go back to the print settings and cancel. And we're almost to the end of this. An easy barcode, if you look at it, is a simulation, the actual thing we were seeing in the actual record before, but this has got the easy barcode at the side of it, and this is information that is used to generate the barcode that you see here. This is kind of like okay, I want to look at the way it was done and what the information is for it and the background color and all that kind of stuff. You can actually come in, and I don't recommend it, but you can change using the color wheel, change the actual background color and the barcode color if you needed to. Okay, that's it for this particular lesson. We've covered everything from the production inventory through the barcode, and the next thing we'll be doing is the production screen itself. Thank you.